too. All right, and Courtney, were you the one that was going to decide what order we were going to go in?
Yeah, so I just put it in the little chat box. So I put Cassie, Courtney, Stephanie, Heather, Soraya.
I just skipped down to the Heather's Gmail address. I was like, that was the important thing. I just skimmed over everything else.
That's okay. Do you want me to keep the times as well, just so we keep on track?
That would be fine. That would be great, actually.
Okay.
All right. I'm just going to go ahead and start, and I'm assuming we're just planning on reading these. I didn't, like, have it memorized or anything, because there's no reason to, but, hopefully Stephanie will be able to connect and get on at some point during my speech.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Are we ready?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I chose to speak on divorce and single-parent families. My life has never been directly influenced with divorce, but I'm in minority and have had plenty of friends and family who have been rocked by this epidemic. The divorce rate in our country continues to rise, as does the cohabitating rate. Both of these contribute to statistics like by age 15, almost half of all children in the United States will have lived in a family with one parent. California was the first state to adopt the No-Fault Divorce Act in 1969 and was eventually adopted by all 50 states by 1985 and the District of Columbia. Before the no-fault divorce was introduced in 1969, couples were required to provide proof or show that one and only one of the party was at fault. Being at fault meant being able to prove that your partner had committed adultery, abandonment, a felony, or another terrible act. If the judge found that both parties were at fault, if both husband and wife had committed adultery or one of these other acts, the marriage would stay intact and the partners would have to find a way to work things out with one another. Divorce would not be an option. Around the same time as the no-fault divorce came in act, cohabitation was becoming socially acceptable. Before, cohabitation was a temporary living situation, usually seen in lower-class young adults without children, and they would live together for a short period of time, and they would either quickly get married or quickly break up. Today, cohabitation is practiced by individuals in every economic class and is no longer viewed as a quick stepping stone toward marriage. The proportion of cohabitating unions that end in marriage within 3 years dropped from 60% in the 1970s to about 33% in the 1990s. Both of these institutions are based on the needs of the individual. Any partner in a marriage can file for a divorce, and many cohabitating couples remain legally single to not hinder their individual lives. Marriage used to be viewed as the precursor to having children, but this ideal has also changed. Cohabitating couples are starting families as well. In Canada, studies show that 69% of births to unmarried women were to cohabitating couples in 1997 and 1998, and the United States is following closely behind Canada in these statistics. Though the idea of the no-fault divorce or even simple cohabitation arrangement may seem ideal for an adult, bringing a child into these situations causes more stress and insecurities for them. Studies show that although both boys and girls are affected negatively by a parent's separation, boys in single-parent home or single-parent families are more likely to develop psychiatric disease and or narcotic diseases. Children have been seen to flourish in two-parent homes. Studies show that when a working father is involved in the child's life, the child becomes more successful emotionally, physically, and mentally. Children living with both parents can gain great understanding of how to manage problems in life. If parents simply take the easy way out and get a divorce, the child learns that leaving is how one should deal with or not deal with their problems. As adults, we are responsible to look out for the next generation. Our children are seeing divorce and cohabitation as acceptable lifestyles, and they will follow the example set for them, causing a complete deterioration of the family and society. Parents need to ask themselves, What am I teaching my child by my choice of lifestyle? And remember that your actions will influence their outlook on life. We know that our system of government requires a long process to introduce new laws and or policies, and likewise a long process to undo the laws like no-fault divorce. By changing the attitudes of individuals, we can change the outlook on divorce. When parents disagree, instead of filing for divorce, take the opportunity to work out problems and become closer to one another. The next generation will benefit from our endurance as addressing. The next generation will benefit from our endurance by addressing the problems instead of running away from it.
Great job. Is that the end?
Yes.
Okay. That's awesome.
Sorry, that kind of teetered out at the end.
No, you're fine. That was great. Okay, so that was pretty close to 5 minutes. My stopwatch didn't start on time, but it was pretty close to 5 minutes.
Perfect.
Okay, so I'll start with the questions.
Okay.
So, there are obviously situations in which divorce is better for a child. For example, like situations in abuse or neglect, if they're unfit parents because of drug abuse and so on. Are there statistics about how many people divorce because of unhappiness or other reasons versus abuse? The reason I ask this is because it's difficult to prove abuse in some situations unless there's hard evidence. So my question is, do you think that people will file for divorce, which may look like no-fault divorce just because it's hard to prove abuse? And if so, how do you plan to work around that in your policy?
There are statistics. A lot of divorces are given the reason of irreconcilable differences or just that the couple can't get along with one another. A lot of times we can see that if they are claiming that there is an abuse problem in the family, I don't know, I feel like sometimes it's easy to see the signs even if it is just emotional abuse. I think to be able to look at a couple and see how they treat each other, you can tell if there's abuse or not going on. I don't really know if that covered your question, but a lot of the reason for divorces today is because the couple just can't get along. And it's not because there is abuse going on. There's statistics that there's actually more abuse in cohabitating relationships than there is in marriages.
Perfect. That answers my question.
Oh, good.
Heather and Soraya, you want to go ahead?
I had it and then I just lost it, so I'm trying to think of it again. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
What's like the thing that you think people can do best to prevent it?
Sorry, you kind of broke up. What is it that I think is best?
Yeah, like a preventative measure to take that families should take.
I found a lot of statistics. I actually found statistics of the average filing for divorce cost in every state, and I'm in California, so I think the California one was like $345 just to file for a divorce, and the process usually takes on average 360 days to completely divorce your spouse. So one of the things, other than changing the outlook on an individual level, was instead of using the money towards divorce or filing for divorce, to instead go to counseling and address the problems, instead of simply paying money to get out of an arrangement that you once wanted.
So for children who are involved in a divorce situation. Because we can't always rule out divorce in situations because of relationships. Some relationships are different than others, and we just kind of have to. Some of them need divorce in like extreme situations. So for children that are in those situations, how can we help? Like, let's better help them get through it without, I guess, setting up the idea for them that they're going to go through divorce someday.
That's a really good question. So how can we make sure that children don't feel like they're doomed to divorce because their parents are divorced?
Yeah.
We have about 30 more seconds.
Okay, one of the things that I found was that children that do grow up in single-parent homes struggle, but children that grow up in a single-parent home with at least one grandparent do just as good or better than children that grow up in two-parent homes. So having at least another adult in the home, especially a supportive grandparent, who a lot of my friends have that situation, they still have a promising life. They're not going to be hindered from having only one parent in the home. So a lot of times children benefit from having just another adult, whether it's a grandparent willing to help or an aunt or an uncle. Also, I've watched videos of therapy sessions where kids go to divorce school, and they, you know, if your parents have been divorced, the children are encouraged to talk about the situations that they're in with other children that are going through the same thing, so that they know that they're not alone and that there is hope for them. And I think that's really helpful. I think every court should mandate children go to divorce school.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Perfect. Great questions. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do mine. And this actually is a mixture of my topic and actually goes along with Cassie's as well, so it's perfect.
Did you want me to start the timer?
Oh, yes, that would be great.
Okay, let me figure out how to do that.
Or I can do it on my phone and I can just keep an eye on it. It's not that big of a deal.
All right, you can do that.
Okay.
Too much technology for me. Okay, go ahead.
All right, so I decided to focus on the issue of the father's absence in the home. And one of the ways that we see a father not assuming the responsibility in the family is by births to single mothers. According to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the births to unmarried women totaled 1,714,643 children in 2007. We also see the absence of fathers through divorce. According to ChildStats.gov, after divorces, we see that the majority of the children living in a single-parent situation are actually living with their mothers. So 72% live with their mothers and only 14% live with their fathers. The reason that this is a problem is because the U.S. Census Bureau says that children are 4 times more likely to be in poor homes when the father is not present. This can be taken in any aspect of the word poor in a financial situation, economic or emotional situation, physical situation, educational situations, and so on. It's been proven that fathers are very essential in the lives of their children. If fathers are not available to their children, Scott Yanora has studied that children without fathers in the home are more likely to have emotional and behavioral problems, to have health problems, to have poor academic performance, to drop out of school, to divorce when they marry, to spend time in jail, to be abused, and to live in poverty. This provides a complex not only for the child, but for the child's family, his immediate surroundings, and also eventually will affect society as a whole. There are no specific policies to keep fathers in contact with their children, but we can take action by changing policies on involvement of fathers after certain situations like divorce. Since divorce rates are still at about 50%, this information will metaphorically affect about half of this group. Data from the Journal of Family Psychology touches on the fact that divorce may not be preventable, but some of the negative effects can be. The study continues to state that children found in joint custody and have contact with fathers develop more positively and have fewer behavioral and emotional problems, higher self-esteem, better family relations, and better school performance than children in sole parental custody. So joint custody is an arrangement for both parents to take care of the child. And unfortunately, it's much more difficult for fathers to get awarded that arrangement. According to a bill text from Congress in 1997, they stated that they were aware of a gender bias favoring mothers. A big reason for this gender bias is because the mothers will provide false allegations against the father for physical, emotional, and sexual abuse to the mother and child. The statement from Congress continues to state that many child protective service agents have policies of not bothering to investigate such allegations or only superficially investigate them. They think it's just a waste of time and money when they're false allegations, so they just don't do anything about it. Even though that statement was almost 17 years ago that it was issued, statistics show that from the Census Bureau, unfortunately, the bias has not changed. It explains that in 2010, the majority of the custodial parents were still mothers at 82.2% and 17.8% for dads. So what would we be looking at if fathers had joint custody of their children? One positive effect found from fathers who are involved in their children's lives is better academic achievement. And the only fathers that had that effect were the ones who were involved in 40% or more of the child's daily care tasks. So this could be provided in divorce cases if the fathers were more able to receive that joint custody. Many more positive effects can be found in the constant involvement of the fathers, including socioeconomic functioning, psychological outcomes, and more empathy towards other people. So I propose that there is no way that 5 and 6 fathers are unfit to parent their children after divorce. In order for proof against custodial rights, there should be sufficient evidence after a thorough investigation instead of just disregarding it. With that said, changing the mindset of the court is obviously going to be difficult, but I think it is essential. Joint custody should be the default unless proven unfit for custodial rights, or at least should be awarded whenever possible. In order for this proposition to receive consideration, you will have to do your own research and gain the knowledge yourselves. Spread the knowledge to the state legislatures and governors by sending emails and letters to inform them that there is a gender bias in the courts regarding joint custody. Getting in contact with them about an issue such as this can provide a way to influence the laws in the state as well as even the national government. I was extremely lucky to grow up in a strong family with a father who was deeply involved with my life. But unfortunately, the presence of a father is declining in other families around the world, and the need for a father's presence hasn't gone away. A very popular quote that I have continually come across is, quote, "Dad, a son's first hero, a daughter's first love," end quote. Let's keep it that way. Thanks.
So,
Okay, so I have a question.
Sure.
I typed it out so I wouldn't forget it. So how do you plan to address the issue of fathers not wanting to be part of their children's lives? I know there's a lot of situations where there's just the one-night stands of fathers getting the girl pregnant. How do you plan to address those situations?
Right, and I think that would fit in the category of unfit to parent, because if they're not ready and they're not going to provide any type of support to the child, then yeah, I don't think they're fit for the parental role. But if the fathers do want contact with their fathers, I don't think that it's right that they are just disregarded because of false allegations. So in order to combat that, obviously, like I said, is to make sure that they're doing the research and making sure that it's actually true.
Okay, I like that. I think probably in both cases, if it was a one-night stand, it would probably be unfit to parent for both of them.
Right, and that could go into yours as well, making sure that the grandparents are available if they're able to take care of that child. So.
my question is, how can a gain the importance of father's concept if the father has like passed away? And so even though maybe the father was involved at a young age for the child, how can the family cope with that, but still having some kind of fatherly figure without a father? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So the great thing about kids is that they're very resilient to a lot of situations that they're put through. Um, and there are a lot of different programs that you can put the kids through. So, for example, like the divorce groups that the kids will go through, there are also groups for fathers that have passed away, or family groups that you can get involved with, church functions if they're religious, or even families, because brothers can take a lot of the role, uncles can take the role, grandparents. So as long as there is a type of family, fatherly figure that they can look to for advice, they're going to get similar positive outcomes.
Okay, my question is, in the church and like the Latter-day community, it's really, I think it's a little bit easier for men to feel inspired to help their families and to want to be a good dad. But in our society, fatherhood is not, it's not always considered such a, and I'm wondering what you step, like an advocacy step can make in society towards like inspiring men to be.
Okay, so I didn't catch some of that, but let me know if this is right. Sorry, you're cutting out. So how do you inspire men outside of the church community to be involved even when they don't want to be? Or yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think that's a really good question. So again, this has to go back to gaining the knowledge yourself and passing it on. A lot of fathers, though, even though society is kind of downplaying their role and saying, you know, they're not really needed in the home, the mothers are pretty much everything that the child needs, they still feel love for their child. They still want to be involved, even if they don't feel that they're important. So getting them involved and informing them that they are important will really help them to understand what role they can play in a child's life.
Thank you.
Okay. So Heather, if you want to go next. Oh, also, if you wouldn't mind talking a little bit louder, for some reason it cuts out sometimes.
Okay.
Or getting closer to the computer, that works.
I don't even know where my mic is, but
oh, that's okay.
I'll try to talk loud. Okay, so I did mine on abortion. And I don't think mine is quite as long as your guys' was, so hopefully it'll do well for timing purposes.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay, so imagine an energetic and full of life baby, precious in every way, innocent beyond any other human being, with so much potential for greatness as they grow into our future astronauts, presidents, doctors, and scientists. They are helpless at such a young age, in need of love and faith. But this is how we grow society. This is how we build communities and expand our population. We reproduce. 1.1 million abortions occur in the United States every year. 1 in 4 pregnancies end in abortion. The United States holds the highest abortion rate by far, and more than half are performed on women less than 25 years of age. These horrifying statistics come from a source called Students for Life of America. They are pro-life. As a mother, Would you kill your newborn baby as you caress her in your arms after delivery? Would the thought cross your mind to kill your innocent toddler when they look at you with those big blue eyes? What about the child who runs up to you with a big smile, searching for your embrace because they just want a hug from their favorite person in the world? What makes abortion so different than these? According to factcheck.org, Obama was trying to pass a House bill in 2009 that would allow abortion to be covered by a federal plan and by federally subsidized private plans. This eventually passed due to Obamacare. With now easy to access federal funds, women across the country, especially teenage girls, can have abortion at their fingertips. But rather than practically giving abortion away for free, whatever happened to fighting for humanity? If teenage girls want to have unprotected sex and as a result get pregnant, let them experience the joys of motherhood, or at least birth, if they consider adoption. Life is created as soon as conception occurs, and a precious and strong heartbeat begins to beat within 18 days after fertilization. These unborn children are our future. Standing up for pro-life, standing up for unborn babies, can result in saving lives. Saving lives of our future doctor who discovers a cure for cancer. Our heroes who fight for our freedom in war, and the first man to discover life on another planet. May we all strive to fight for life, fight for children, and build up mankind. Let us continue to grow family units to obtain joy in our lives. Children are our future. Let's bring them into the world and not shut them out.
Good job. That's great. So it was 3 minutes and 45 seconds. That's good. Okay, so I'll go ahead and start with the question then. So you mentioned that that teens are most likely to get abortions. So one counter argument to your policy of restricting abortion is that if we restrict abortion, teens will go to more dangerous sources and illegal sources. And then the counter argument to that is that they should realize that it's dangerous and not do it, or let them go through the joys of motherhood. So in my child development class, we learned about the development of the teenagers. And like you said, most people who get abortions are teens. And they're going through a transitional learning stage called formal operational stage. And in this stage, teens actually believe that they are, quote, invincible. So whatever argument that their parents may make about abortion, drugs, wearing a seatbelt, anything like that, they don't actually think that something bad will happen to them or somebody else in that respect. So how do you plan on working a policy around that information, taking into account that teens really only think of themselves, and when they do think of themselves, they believe that they won't get hurt or hurt anybody else?
Sorry, could you rephrase that? It just kind of all like mushed together.
Oh, sorry. Maybe I wasn't. Okay. So since teens are the ones that are getting more abortions than anybody else, most of the policy will be affecting the teens. Mm-hmm. So since they believe that abortions won't hurt them or won't hurt anybody else, how do you plan to put in that policy when they still think they can get abortions illegally, or in other cases for people who don't know what they're doing?
So you wanting to know how teens, do you think that it won't hurt them? sorry.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to wrap my mind around this.
No, sorry. Maybe I'm being really confusing. So one of the counter arguments to abortions is that if they can't get it legally, they're going to go to somebody else to do it illegally, and it could possibly harm them, right?
Right.
So since teens think that, how are you going to work your policy of keeping abortions down around their idea of not thinking that they can hurt themselves through other ways of getting an abortion?
Okay, so how am I abortion to stay down without having them go get it illegally done?
Yes.
I don't know. Well, I think maybe if we were able to provide some kind of like class or program where teens who are impregnated can go, and if they're considering abortion or don't want the babies at all, just kind of having this class or something that explains all of the effects that happen if they can feel difficult to get it done.
So providing some type of education program for them for other ways.
Yeah. Okay. That explains the effects on, effects on them if they don't do it illegally, I guess.
Oh, perfect.
Okay, I'll ask a question. Do you think that, like, sex education in our public schools is actually helpful, or that it's more harmful to about it, and how they like try to teach you? It's kind of in schools now, instead of teaching you to be abstinent, they just say, well, kids are going to do it anyway, so we'll stereotype. Do you think that's good, or that's kind of harmful to
Well, I kind of have two things. First, I think that in sex education, and I only had sex education when I was in middle school, so I didn't have anything in high school. I don't know what they do now, but I feel like I know we're at a religious school, and being LDS, that it's just a couple. But I don't feel like in sex education they really talk about, it's really special to do between two people that really love each other and are committed to each other, and not just something that you do because you want to do it. And so I feel like maybe if they talked about that more and kind of led kids to the idea that, intercourse is between two people that really are committed to each other and not just something to do for fun, like going to a party or something. But I also think that, like with Obamacare, they are basically just saying, we'll pay for all things like condoms and all things to prevent conception, and then we'll also provide abortion. But I feel like, yeah, you can provide, all of the morning after pill and stuff like that if kids are really going to get into trouble. But with the abortion itself, I feel like they shouldn't just middle way. Like that should they should make it more of a consequence for kids to work around. If you're not going to use protection, then this is what you're going to have to deal with.
Okay, we have about 30 more seconds for questions.
Okay. I don't know if this is, I don't know, this is probably going to cause more of a discussion than a question, but one of your arguments was that if a teen were to get pregnant, she should have to, and I think you said something like deal with the joy that comes from being a parent. I almost think that that's counterproductive in the fact that you made a bad choice and now we're going to force this happiness on you of becoming a parent because you decided to have sex. I don't know, I kind of don't see the logic in that. And I know you mentioned, I think what you were saying was counseling instead of just straight abortion. Is that, it was kind of garbled, but yeah. I'm assuming that's what you were saying. I almost feel like something should be introduced of, you know, how teens have to go through driver's ed to get a driver's license. I think pregnant teens should have to go through parenting school before they have a baby. And it doesn't always work like that, but you know, some will be in denial, some will try to self-medicate until they kill the baby, and abortion is going to happen either way. But my question was kind of along the same lines as Courtney. What are you going to do? Because they're still going to be able to get it in some other unhealthy way if the government doesn't provide. I'm in no way in favor of abortion, but I don't know.
Right.
I think counseling. Maybe that's this marriage and family major. I think counseling solves everything. So.
Yeah, I think just really providing like classes and programs out there for those who want to have an abortion. And I mean, yeah, we're not gonna stop everyone from abortion. That's just not gonna happen. But I think, you know, educating the public, and that's something that doesn't really happen as much anymore. I don't know if it's ever happened, but I think something that could really help getting girls out there to see the effects on it and the effects that'll happen to them, and I mean, they can get their depression, and there is a lot of effects on websites talking about pro-life and the negative effects on their own self by having an abortion.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with our media, because our media is so for abortion. I mean, even on TV shows and movies and things, it's just like, get an abortion, take care of it. And I think that's probably where regulations need to be put. But
yeah,
anyways,
it shouldn't be like the first choice. You know.
Yeah.
Okay, we're out of time. Sorry. I want to keep talking, but okay. Soraya, do you want to present?
Yeah, and I will try and go really quick.
You're fine.
My speech is a lot less formal. It's kind of more discussion, so I can talk about it. But I decided to research a little bit about children in the media, because this is a topic that I'm kind of passionate about, and I think about a lot in the future with our children and what we're going to do, because the media just, the other day I was flipping through the TV, and I haven't watched the TV myself in a long time, and I was surprised by how much I was offended just flipping through the channels, and some things made me honestly want to cry because they were so offensive and just so blunt and crude. And so anyways, I found this statistic that states that children between the ages of 8 and 18 spend 4.5 hours viewing TV every day, 2 hours listening to music, 1.5 hours on the computer, an hour and a half on video games, and half an hour of movies every day. If you total this all up, it's about 10 hours. So And we're only awake for about not even awake that long, maybe like 18 hours in a day. A child would be awake, and so they're spending more than half of their time watching TV. They're in this electronic virtual world. It's obviously going to damage into their brains, to their emotions, and to their spirit. And so I put this up into some different categories, and one is that, like, we live in this digitized world now, and we're quickly evolving into that even more. Kids are being more involved in social media at a younger age. Things like, back in the day when we had things like Zynga or MySpace, kids used to do that more when they were 14 years old. Kids with Facebook or Twitter now are as young as 8 years old. Also, advertising is a big thing with, before I go to advertising, with this digital world and social media, kids are starting to have virtual friends. They're losing their, like, contact, their physical person-to-person relationships. They're losing how to interact with people, and instead are living like this three-dimensional world that's really fulfilling for them. With advertising, it's really interesting researching it. People research children's minds, and they know how to create commercials that will entertain them and that will make them interested in the product. So, like, hero commercials, when they use cartoon characters, just because the way that children perceive those images, it makes them interested in that object. So they'll be like, Mom, I want to get that cereal at the store. Same with advertisements. Men and women are being portrayed much like they are becoming more and more sexualized, and women becoming more of this figure or this power-hungry kind of man. And so young girls and young boys have this image look to them since this is known to system. And a lot of people are buying into this idea that the media is selling. Another thing is video games. A common problem that we're having in our country and in other countries is things like violence, and a lot of this can be traced back to psychological problems that develop in video games. And video games can be very good and very fun, but it can also be very harmful because they desensitize you to sexual things, to violence especially. A lot of kids who bring guns into their school, they view it kind of like a game because they've lost touch of what is just pretend and who can wake up after their shot and what is real. One last topic I wanted to talk about is health. Obesity is an epidemic that's rising in our country and around the world. And kids, I think, are becoming quite a bit more lazy than they used to be. They don't have to work their bodies so much anymore because things are so convenient when it comes to education. So much in their lifestyle. And so kids don't want to go outside and play as much because they can play on this virtual world. And one recommendation that I have for children in media is to start in the home. As parents and as siblings, we can really inspire what's in your home, how to get children active, you can improve the relationships that you have within yourself to lead people away from the media. I think censorship is not always a bad thing. I think it's good to make awareness about what is okay and what's not. And like other things in the school, you have to teach your kids correct principles, and then you have to also teach them to govern themselves with those correct principles. So you can't monitor everything that they do. It's better to teach them how to recognize something that's not good for them and to move away from it. And also moderation and also I think there's a lot of good that can come from the internet and from movies and from games with your family and your friends. But moderation is a huge thing that we need to learn, and especially with our children that are aging.
That was great. I love that. Do you mind if I get a copy? I know that sounds weird, but
I didn't actually write up a speech, but I have notes I could send you.
Oh, sure. That works. That would be perfect. Okay, so the question that I have for you is I found a study by Woolfolk. It's the guy who did the study. He said that there is more of a concern for low socioeconomic status families watching TV than high socioeconomic status families.
Mhm.
And he was talking about how TV, obviously, like you said, can be good for you. So my question is, in homes that are not intellectually stimulating, like the low socioeconomic households, do you think that TV is a better option than no TV?
Um, I think it depends on what you're watching. But in most cases, I would say no. I think that there's there's just something special that you learn in the natural world around you that you just can't learn the same way as through a movie. And even when we're doing physical things, medically it does things like the blood flowing through our brain, um, the hormones that it like
Stimulates?
like produces the like what physically happens to your body when you are moving around is good for your learning. So my opinion would be that that no, TV is not the best stimulation for your brain. But I think there are some cases where it might be the better option. I don't know, I think that's just a total information.
My question is, do you think it's more important to change the media or to change the parents?
Um I would say the parents because realistically we're not going to be able to totally change media. But we can change parents and a lot more. Because one of the problems with media is that it's a business. Um, they advertise what they do and they give off these images because they make money off of it. But with parents, they're invested in the people that they love, their family and their kids. And when you are motivated by emotions like that, you're much more likely to change than when you're motivated by money. And so I think that you need to focus on parents and your home of the media.
Right. Um, how how would you help an addicted child, like a child that's addicted to media? Like, how would you help your own child if they were addicted to it?
Just like addicted to everything, like video games,
Yeah,
just
like
couldn't get out of it.
everything in media.
I think I would cold turkey make my kids do things outside and get them involved in other activities. There's like so many opportunities that kids have in our country to be involved in sports or music or acting. They can get involved in all sorts of community service. The church provides a lot of activities like this. So I think if you will just like go out of your way a little bit to look for an opportunity for your kid to be involved in the community somehow, that you'll find it. And I think that's where I would start with the child who is addicted to any kind of media. I would try and get them involved in some kind of organization. Keeps their mind off of it, and keeps them engaged in something, and also where they can meet friends.
Perfect. Okay, so Stephanie emailed me her document do you want me to read it, or do you want me to post it to the discussion board and we can all?
I don't know. It's gonna be really bad for her because we have to do the peer review, and
I think it's okay if you want to post it.
yeah, if you just want to post it, I mean, I don't know. I think the whole point behind this was to choose topics we were passionate about so that we would get to talk about them.
Mhm. Yeah, she said she's kept trying, but she just sent it to me and said that she can't get on.
Yeah, and then we can all just read it. Or if, I don't know, if she wants to record herself doing it and post her own video, then we can all see her present it.
Oh, that's a good idea. Let me email her about that, and then
Okay.
she can post it. We can post questions and
yeah,
hopefully
and
have
that
a
way
discussion.
it would be like, still kind of be a part of it.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a good idea. Okay, I will go ahead and email.
And I can post this on the discussion board, and then we have to go through and do our peer review
Mhm.
of each one. So if everyone, well, I think we all have our BYU Idaho emails, because you have to. I have the peer review open right now, so you have to have your classmate's email address, the name, the presentation topic, and the review of how persuasive it was, the evidence they gave, evaluation, alternatives. Oh, there's a lot. Offered ideas and suggestions, and Q&A, and then any final feedback. So we do that for each of the presentations.
Mhm. So we do that separately, though, right?
Yeah.
We don't
Yeah.
do it as a group. Okay.
Yeah. Other than that, I think we're good for the week. We'll probably be meeting again next week, because that's what always happens. But we will talk to you all then.
Sounds great. Thanks for setting it up.
Oh, you're welcome.
Happy birthday. Have a good night.
Thanks. Bye.